In my next video, I'm going to talk about basically the watermelon cleanse and a couple of benefits and things to look for through the cleanse. But in this video, I'm going to basically get a little bit further into what I was talking about in the last topic when I talked about, the black man and the white man, man and woman, acid versus alkaline, whatever it may be. Everything's in twos over here. See, the whole thing is that everything is in twos in order for you to participate and be experiencing this reality. You have to live in duality to some extent, but you could be the observer. You get what I'm saying? It's more or less like you could be in the world but not of it. Okay, but everything's always going to come down to sexuality. Okay, and the reason I say this is because when I mentioned before about how women are the negative side of energy, and I want you to take the concept of bad and good out. Because negativity, okay, it's not just what it means when it means bad and good. You just have this, mental programming that you automatically think bad. Negative side of energy is just a negative charge to a positive charge, okay? So negative, meaning attractive energy, magnetism. See, it has to exist. That's what forms the field for you. Because if I take iron filings, the reason I even use the example of iron filings, the iron-rich blood of manhood, right? Mankind, right? When you throw iron filings, it just becomes a random pattern. But when you have magnets, it'll expose the field. It makes a formation out of it. So there's a chemistry. There's something happening there. Okay? Now, when I look at black and white, okay? The black man, I also said, is the feminine side of energy. Because that's black, darkness, okay? Negativity. The negative side of energy. It's more of the feminine side of energy. Okay, but when you look at this, you could look at this in one or two ways too, depending on perspective or the type of eye you want to put to it. Because to a photographer, right, or to, let's say, a regular average Joe, you could look at white and say white is blank, the absence of color. And you could look at black as all colors, right, all put together. Or you could look at black as no color and white as all the colors in one, right? It just depends. So which one is the good and which one is the bad? You know what I'm saying? It just depends which eye you're looking at it from. Now, the reason I say this overall, all this illusion of separation, all these movements that we start to basically look at and cater to, they're all talking about the same shit. And it's all rooted out of the same thing, sexuality. This is why when they ask you, what is the sex of that individual, right? You would say male and female. Why do they categorize it as what sex are you? Everything is sexual. Everything's sexualized. Okay? Because everything has to have a chemistry. It has to have a chemistry that's harmonious between masculine and feminine. Okay? So I'll look at it like this. Overall, right? Humanity is called la humanidad. You could look at humanity. Okay? Humanity is the feminine energy, is on the feminine side of energy. Humanity overall. It doesn't matter if it's man, woman, it doesn't matter if it's black, white, Chinese, it doesn't matter if it's Indian, doesn't matter, Spanish, doesn't matter what it is. Humanity overall is on the negative feminine side of energy. This is why they allow you to protest. This is why they allow you to basically participate in the feminine side of energy, right? Because if you were on the positive side of energy, you would stand up for yourself, okay? And this is the whole thing, though. This is why we're in a system that's, we call it a patriarchal system. Okay? So, man over woman. So you have the man, right? Looking over humanity. But who is that masculine energy looking over humanity? See, it all requires for humanity to stand up for itself. But what is that requiring, though? Right? Being born again of the Father. Right? So when you say being born again of the Spirit, being born again of the Father, what does that mean? Right? This is why you overcome the feminine energy. You're overcoming it. So you overcome the woman. You're basically overcoming humanity because humanity is the feminine negative side of energy. Right? You overcome humanity and now you're born again of the Father. You see what I'm saying? When you look at it overall, when you look at it, let's say from a city or a country standpoint, the city is feminine, right? It's in countries. The country is masculine. That's why you call it la ciudad. And you even say you're a citizen. La ciudadanía. El ciudadano is mankind being a citizen. There's a chemistry there, right? So you have now el país. You don't see the cities going to war. You see the countries going to war. So el país is masculine. The cities are feminine. La ciudad. Las ciudades del país. De el país. All right? And this is why I like to go back to Spanish, because Spanish actually exposes what's feminine and what's masculine. Right? So like I said before, el ciudadano o la ciudadanía de la ciudad, meaning the citizen of the state, de el estado. But you got state, which is actually masculine. So now, why do I mention state? Your mental state, okay? You're projecting something, and that's going to be determined by your mental state, right? But it's also determining you as a citizen and what vibrational state you're in. But you emit a frequency. That's masculine, okay? And you're supposed to basically maintain and control your emotions. That's one of the virtues of man, is having control over your emotions. A country goes to war, right? Countries go to war, right? It's one looked at one of two ways. You're fighting for resources, or again, it's warlike. It's Mars energy, okay? When you look at cities and states, you can have your hand, la mano, right? El dedo or los dedos. The fingers are always going to be masculine. You point with your fingers, you touch with your fingers. You know what I'm saying? It's masculine. The hands hold overall, or you can give. That's a feminine trait. That's why la mano is not ever going to be called el mano. It's la mano, los dedos, el dedo. Los dedos would be all, because if it was feminine, it would be las dedos, but it doesn't make sense. Los dedos, la mano. Okay? El pie, los dedos. Okay? Why is the feet overall masculine? You can't hold nothing with your feet. El pie o los pies. You see? So you can expose things for what it is. When you look at humanity overall and you transcend the physical, you're transcending that feminine negative energy. Negative, don't look at it as bad or good. It's the magnetism, right? But you have to understand that you're the chemistry that holds this system in place. When humanity stands up, then you're transcending the physical. You're transcending the feminine energy. You're overcoming the woman. Not to say the woman is bad. You see, this is the whole thing, because everybody, that's why these movements, they're designed to create an illusion of separation. They're all talking about the same fucking shit. The whole thing is that it's a corruption. Like, a woman will never be equal to a man. Okay? There's many different ways to look at this, because movies and cartoons and all this should show you this. If you look at Superman, okay? Look at the sun, for example. The sun would be the representation of the giver of all life. Matter of fact, when you look at the sun, this is the ultimate mirror of who you are here on the planet, right? It comes up, you light up the world, and then it goes down, you go back to sleep. But you're lighting up your reality. You don't think you're that important, okay? Because you think that you're here with other people, but you're here by yourself. That's the whole thing. You're in darkness right now. There is not even a sun. There's no planet. There's nothing here. Everything, you're in darkness. So you're in the void. You're in darkness. Okay? You light up the world. This is why you are mankind. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. It's not called womankind or anything like that. It's called mankind for a reason. And they label mankind to men and women, because there's been women astronauts and they say one leap for mankind. Okay? Christ in man, man over woman, woman over the children. Now, I was watching one dude named, the hell is his name? Jesse Lee Peterson. Okay? And I'm really into watching debates. I don't know what it is about them. I'm not watching it for entertainment purposes. I'm watching them because it brings out the best in both sides. So as a neutral observer, when I look at this, it's very, very informative. It's very, when you have an open mind, you can really receive, but you're not looking at it from polarization, which means you're not looking at it as a human. You're looking at it from a higher perspective, the overall scope of things. When I look at Jesse Lee Peterson, right, he's a black man. He's a Christian pastor or whatever he is, but he's pro-Trump. He basically speaks very highly of white people, and always says that the black man is weak and is always complaining. And yeah, I mean, they're on the feminine side of energy. Okay? So when you look at Jesse Lee Peterson, he's a black man who's on the feminine side of energy, having a proper chemistry with the white man who is the pastor, who is the masculine side of energy. So there's going to be a very, very good chemistry there. It can make him a very powerful individual if he's aware of that's. I'm sure he knows all this shit. He just doesn't say it. You get what I'm saying? I'm probably sure he does know all this. But then I look at, for example, the whole transgender, and he's had these type of people on the show, and he says this is a sickness. You know what I'm saying? See, and I also mentioned in my previous video, there's a lot of power in transgenders and all that type of stuff if they're aware of what they know what they're doing. Okay? The reason I say this is because if a man, right, suddenly feels like a woman and he just decides to change his sex, okay, he's still always going to be a man, right? He is putting on a costume, in my opinion, okay, and he says he's a man. But are you entitled to tell him he's not a man, that he is now a woman, if he labels himself a woman, right? So he does everything that a woman would do, regardless of the fact if he's a man or not. So let's say, for example, somebody says they're vegan, and they do all the vegan virtues, everything that's required to be a vegan, right? Not even wearing, their clothes reflects veganism, their diet reflects veganism, their lifestyle reflects veganism, their activism reflects veganism. How can I say he's not a vegan? He's living the lifestyle of a vegan, right? A carnivore eats meat. He says he's a carnivore. Am I going to call him a vegan? No. And I understand that, because you see, this is the thing. You're not even human. The same way you're not any of these labels, you're really not even human. So the fact that you're arguing with that individual saying that you're a man when he's arguing that he's a woman because he decided to change his gender, okay? He was born again from one thing to another. It's no different than somebody being a criminal and just decided to live a lifestyle now where they are the most harmonious Christian on the planet. They're a totally different person, right? So gender-wise, here's where I see the inversion and why I say it's kind of like an advancement to some extent. A person who overcame asexuality to go into another sexuality but be open about it regardless of what anybody says takes a lot of courage, but they also stood their position regardless of what anybody else says about them. Regardless of how much intellectual knowledge you want to throw at them, the stronger they can stand their ground, the stronger spiritually that person becomes. See, it takes adversity for you to be a lot stronger. Now, here's the thing when it comes down to why I say it's an imbalance and it's inverted to some extent. It's not Christian-like, but it's also not in nature to change your gender, but also what you're eating and what you're consuming, and the fact that people don't know themselves, so they create trauma for certain individuals to have them change genders. Because it basically imbalances their chemistry. Even if you get raped as a child, don't forget you're actually creating a imbalance in that root chakra, depending on how the level of trauma happened. But at the end of the day, it corrupts the root systems of the body, okay? And you now don't have a clue of who you are as a gender. But if you are aware that you're not human, none of these things would even matter to you or the other individual who are pointing fingers. You get what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing though. Why it's in an imbalance is because the way that you would look at this in a natural state is you're going to have men who are naturally a little bit more feminine than other men. You'll see some men carry themselves very, very manly. But these very, very manly men tend to attract very feminine females. You get what I'm saying? And then you got these masculine, these little feminine men. And this is the thing though. It doesn't matter if you're feminine. You just have more of an expression of feminine energy in you, and you express it outward. You're still a man though, but you still like the opposite sex. You'll probably attract a more masculine woman. It's only because that's how balances are created. And I've seen this upon observation. So when you have you've seen these women, they carry themselves a little bit more masculine, but they still like men. There's nothing wrong with that. You get what I'm saying? Because everybody's androgynous, but this is the natural state. This is why you see the colors of the rainbow. It's either black or white, right? But all the colors in between, right? When you see a black man and a white man, you would say, what are the colors in between? The colors in between would be Chinese, Asian. Like, you don't notice Asian, they categorize them as more like yellow skin. You got Spanish people, they're more caramel skin. Then you got other, races like Russians, Germans, and whatever it may be, right? You got all different types of all wakes of life. And that's the rainbow that you'll observe in physical reality, in a natural state, right? So, but the natural state of you observing all those colors would be still where you can observe a masculine and feminine energy, but still have a proper conducive sexual preferences toward the other person. So let's say if you're a man, you like women. And if you're a woman, you like men, right? So that's natural. But the unnatural way would be where if you're a man and you feel like a woman and you convert and transform into a woman, I mean, nothing wrong with that. That's more power to you. I see how the problem I have is when people start pushing these movements on people. This is why I have a big problem with vegans, because they tend to push their religion on you. Religion, when it's pushed on somebody, there's a lot of gems and jewels to the Christian virtue. You know what I'm saying? Your morality is rooted and coming from a divine place if you know how to exercise these things. Okay? But everything is basically intertwined and connected. You have to look in between the lines and see what's going on over here. It's just like carnivores and vegans. They're arguing, but the vegans actually argue that carnivores are heartless. They go out and torture, rape, and kill animals and whatnot. But the vegans do the same thing. And most of the arguments of these vegans is sentience. Now, when you go into sentience, right? Let's talk about the sentience, right? We talk about sentience. Your cells in your body are sentient. So when you go and you try to smash somebody else in a debate, you're destroying a bunch of sentient beings. See, the whole thing is, this is why inversion is happening. You get further and further away from God, the more further and further you look into outside of yourself, looking for technology to answer all your questions in order for you to get to know somebody. You get what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't take so much words and language. You should just get to know somebody the moment you step in a room with them. But all these things atrophy because of the creation of technology. Okay? So man created in the image of God, we stopped being God-like to be more men. And we stopped being man-like to be more robotic-like. Because we're catering to computers, but we're being more robotic at the same time. We're merging more and more with AI. It's just like when you're a child. Everybody's a child now as you speak. It don't matter what age you are. You just stop being childlike just to be more like what you're programmed to be, a man or a woman. Right? And then kids coming into this world, you see how the natural state of a human is. You can observe what the natural diet of a human is, but the reason there's so much corruption and talk and debates between, like, let's say carnivore and veganism and all these diets is because all your information is corrupt. See, the big argument with vegans, let's say that carnivores have, is that vegans are B12 deficient. When B12 is like, I mean, you find B12 in nature, in water or whatnot, and you can live on 7 micrograms of B12 and it stays in your system for about 6 years. So you got vegans taking these supplements that require, let's say, between 25, some even take 5,000 micrograms when you can live off 7 micrograms. So how are you saying that you can't be deficient? The reason you can't house it is because the vegan diet is still as atrocious as the carnivore diet. The natural state of a human to eat is basically raw, living force food, like life force energy. So if we're the most intelligent being on the planet, then we should be focusing on life force energy. And what's more life force than what you find in air, right? Your breath. What's the longest you can go without? You can go the longest without food. The shortest thing you could go without is, air, breath. Second would be water. And hydration, to begin with, is the key to proper health. Because anything that causes diseases or stagnation in the body right, has to flow, and that's dehydration. That's crusted up shit that doesn't move. So it requires hydration, but not from water, because if your body's acidic, it'll just go right through you. The key is to alkalize your body if it's too acidic, so it's not robbing calcium from the skeletal matrix. You know what I'm saying? Where it's compromising your parathyroid. Parathyroid gets compromised. Now all of a sudden you feel depression, all these type of things. Then you go to a doctor and they give you these pills to suppress all these things. You think there's something wrong with you, and there's really nothing wrong with you. It's the diet you eat, your mental state behind your life overall. Not knowing that whatever you have in life going on, you're pointing fingers at, but it's all starting from changing within yourself. You change from within yourself, your life outside of you starts to reflect the change outside as well. But when you start to point fingers at the things outside of you, you're consenting to the fact that you're demonizing yourself. You're creating an inflammatory reaction outside of you, and then you're eating inflammatory foods. That's a chemistry and a recipe for disaster. So now you end up coming out with a dis-ease, when harmony starts from the inside out. Doesn't matter what diet you're on. It's all a mental state. The mental state is your masculine energy. So how do you house or care or nurture for your emotions, which would be the feminine side of energy, the hand, right? La mano, the fingers, what you're pointing at. When you point your finger at something, you're declaring war. Same thing, right? Countries going to war. So I don't see this. I don't know why the separation. Why can't people see the illusion of separation between all things? Like, it shouldn't matter what anybody eats. To be honest with you, it shouldn't matter what anybody's doing. Once you change yourself, you'll notice the world starts to change outside of you. You got all these movements, these things that people start to point the finger at, these people doing heinous acts. I'm aware of what's happening, but if it's triggering you, I mean, that's something you have to work within yourself. See, these vegans, I believe they're imbalanced in their animalistic natures. And when you're imbalanced in your animalistic natures, okay, what are these animals to begin with? They're mirrors and reflections of yourself. That's all they are. But you're hungry from one way, all right? Instead of going out and attack and physically do these things, you're doing it in an evolved way. The way technology designed it to do. Because look, I made a video on Revenge of the Nerds. Revenge of the Nerds comes down to back then, let's say people who are, and this is the thing though, even humans are animalistic. Like, you would have people bully a weaker person in school, and yeah, it's terrible to do this, but that's just basically no different than if you got a cat in the wild and it terrorizes another cat. That's just basically alpha male over the beta male. You'll observe this in humans as well. When you're younger and you don't know any better, you're acting out in your animalistic natures, okay? It's just a beta male getting outpowered by an alpha male. But now in society now, you got these computers and you got all these, the protection of these screens and whatnot. And these things protect you. And you can actually now, with intellect, smash somebody that would have potentially bullied you physically. And you can exercise your power in that way. Revenge of the Nerds. See, in humanity, it takes, even if there was no computers, your body is the protection. It's kind of like the screen of a computer protecting you from another person. Your body protects your spirit. You're the real you. Your body is the armor of God. So if you're armored with the armor of God, nothing can hurt you. No weapon shall prosper against you. Anyway, this is gonna cut off, so I'll make another video. If you like, share, and subscribe. Say thank you in the comments if you got some value.